Hi again and welcome to Lesson 6 of Android App Development Training Course. Today, you will learn how to incorporate different types of images in your application, convert images to WebP and vector drawable formats, and load image files dynamically during runtime. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to create a very simple game application of random images generated from a mutable list that you can guess using a shuffled function. For this demonstration, I'll be working with an empty project template. To incorporate images in your app, you can either use an image view or an image button. But for this activity, I'll be working with an image view. So, I'll click and drag it on my layout. And then, a pick a resource dialog window appears that lets me select from an existing image in my project. So far, I don't have any image files to this project. So for now, I can just simply use this sample image provided by the Android Studio. I'll choose this avatar and click OK. And then I'll add constraints to the top, bottom, right, and left of this image view. I'll also change the layout width of this image view to 0 dp to match the constraint. I'll do the same for the layout height. And now you see that the image view fills and matches the width and the height of its parent container. Now, when I run this app, nothing is displayed. You must know that sample images like this avatar that we use to design our layout are not displayed during runtime. Avatars are only useful to visually design your image view during design time, wherein the actual images could be loaded during runtime. Also, notice here in the source compat attribute, the avatar is actually an array, wherein you can change the index to use a different avatar image. This is useful when you are designing an app with multiple image views. Android supports various image file types like the common JPG and PNG files. And to use an actual image files, you can add them under res drawables directory. I have here 3 PNG files that I will be working with. So, I'll copy this and paste it in the Drawables directory. Just click OK and then refactor. So, we now have the apple, grapes, and orange.png files. You can double-click these files to see the images. In the source compat attribute, not this one with the wrench, it is only used for the sample image. The source compat without the wrench icon, when you click on it, you'll see the list of all the available drawable image resource to choose from. I'll select the grapes and click OK. And I no longer need the sample data, so I'll delete it. Let's use our app in the emulator and see how it looks. And it looks good. You can also change how the image fits inside the image view. In the scale type attribute, you have several options to choose from like center inside, fit start, fit end. You can stretch the image to match the actual image view and so on. I'll use the center inside. Android also supports a newer image format called WebP. It provides superior lossless and lossy compression for images on the web. Lossy WebP also supports transparency, like the PNG images, but providing a much smaller file size. In Android Studio, you can work with any supported images like these PNG files that we have and convert it to a WebP format. To do that, simply right-click on the image that you want to convert and then select Convert to WebP. It opens a dialog window for you to set whether to use lossy or lossless encoding. By default, it is set to 75% encoding quality. Also, there is a note here that says, if we have transparent images, then it requires at least Android 4.3 or API level 18 for it to work. So, just make sure that your project's minimum SDK is set accordingly. Mine is set to a minimum of API level 19. Then, just click OK, and you will be presented with a preview of the source image and the converted image. You can see that the source PNG image has a file size of 122 KB, and the output WebP format is only 9 kilobytes. a huge difference of only 7% of the original file size. Here in the middle is the image detail that is being stripped off from the original image quality. You can still adjust the encoding quality based on how you want to view the image, but typically, 75% is a good balance between quality and file size. So, I'll just click Finish. Then, to use it, I'll change the source compat attribute. Instead of this grapes PNG file, I'll use this apple of type WebP. And now, let's run the app. And it looks good. You can use WebP format just like any other image. So, I'll change both the grapes and the orange PNG images to WebP format as well. Using the image view, we can also load images dynamically during runtime. To demonstrate it, I'll delete the bottom constraint first of this image view. And then, I'm going to add a switch. I'll add a constraint to the bottom, left, and right of the switch. I'll also add a bottom margin of 32 dp. I'll change the text size to 18 sp. And in the text attribute, I'll say, switch to grapes. Well, let me create a string resource for this. I'll name it switch grapes and a value of switch to grapes. Then, I can now select this image view again and create a bottom constraint to the top of the switch. Let's run our app to see how it looks. So far, it looks good. But what I want here is that when I toggle this switch that says switch to grapes, then it should load the grapes image and change the text to saying switch to apple. And then, when I switch it back again, the apple image gets displayed again. To accomplish this task, I'll configure to use the view binding first. So, to programmatically access this image view, I'll change its ID to image view fruit. And this switch to switch fruit. Then, in my onCreate function, I'll access the binding.switchFruit.setOnCheckChangeListener. Now, this lambda has two parameters, a view and a boolean is checked. And if you don't want to use one of these, say, this button view, you can simply replace it with just underscore. And inside, I want to know if the switch is checked, which means toggled on. Then, I'll access the image view fruit and use the setOnImage resource function to load an image that comes from the Drawable resource. I'll choose grapes and then I'll change the text attributes of this switch to apple. I'll extract this as a string resource. However, if this switch is toggled off, I'll reset the text to saying switch to grapes and change the image being displayed back to apple. So, let's run and test our app. If I switch this on, grapes is displayed. And the text that appears here now says switch to apple. And now, if I switch it off, it resets to the original text that says switch to grapes. And the apple image is displayed back. Aside from the raster graphics like PNG and JPG images, Android also supports vector drawables. Vector drawable is a vector graphic defined in an XML file as a set of points, lines, and curves along with its associated color information. The major advantage of using a vector drawable is image scalability. It can be scaled without loss of display quality, which means the same file is resized for different screen densities without loss of image quality. This results in smaller APK files and less developer maintenance. You can also use vector images for animation by using multiple XML files instead of multiple images for each display resolution. To create a new vector drawable, click File, New, and select Vector Asset. You can also right-click any directory in your project and choose New, Vector Asset. You can configure a new vector asset either from a clipart or from a local file. Local source from file must be either an SVG or scalable vector graphic or a Photoshop document image. I'll browse for the file. I already have one SVG file here named orange2.svg. It is only 5 KB and you can view the image via web browser. So I'll select this orange2.svg file. Although you can resize this but limit it to about 200 dp, as you might encounter loading problems when setting this to a very large dimension. Anyway, it will be scaled elegantly when rendered even to various pixel densities. The suggested name is IC_orange2. I'll change it to IC orange vector and click Next and then Finish. And we've successfully created a vector drawable image. Just like any other images, you can simply select it in the Pick a Resource window. Or, let me change this back to the orange WebP first and have it loaded during runtime instead. When referring to any of your image resources in code, either in XML or in Kotlin, you don't have to specify the file extension. So, let's run our app, and as you can see, the orange vector is displayed during runtime. Let me just check if our switch still works. In Android Studio, we can also create icons that you can use to display small graphic in your navigation bars, tabs, buttons, and so on. To illustrate how to create and use icons, I'll delete the bottom constraint of this image view first and then insert a button in between. I'll change the text to Show Random Image by creating a string resource. And then I'll set its right, left, and bottom constraint. And finally, I'll set the bottom constraint of this image view to the top of this button. To create an icon, right-click and then select New Image Asset. In the icon type, select Action Bar and Tab Icons. If the asset type is set to clipart, then you can choose from any of these available cliparts provided. You can filter it, or you can search for a specific clipart that you want. I'll choose this cake and click OK. In the theme, if you set it to Hollow Light, the icon will be dark color. But since my button is purple, I'll change this to Hollow Dark so that the icon will be white to stand out. And finally, I'll change the name to IC_cake and click Next. Here, see the different XML files that will be created for this icon, and then click Finish. In the Drawables directory, you'll find a new IC_cake folder consisting of several PNG and XML files created. To use this icon, I'll select this button and search for icon attribute and select this IC cake icon. Now, let's run the app and see the effect. And there you have it, we have a button with an icon inside together with the text. You can also create an icon from an external image. Again, I'll create another image asset, and in the asset type, I'll choose image. I'll browse for the file and say, I want this apple.png. And here is my apple icons with different sizes. I'll change the name of this to IC_apple and then click Next and Finish. In the icon attribute, I'll change this to IC_Apple and then test it one more time. And now, we have this nice apple icon that appears. Finally, to add a functionality to this button, what I want is that when I click this button, a random image of either apple, grapes, or orange is displayed. To do this, I'll create a list of fruits using the list of function. I will not declare the type and have it inferred instead depending on the content of this list of function. So, I'll add the apple, grapes, and orange drawable resources. One thing you need to understand when using this list of function in Kotlin, it is immutable. You cannot modify its content. So, if you plan on using the add function like the list in Java, you cannot use it here. And if you want that your list is mutable, you can call the mutable list of function instead. And then, other functions to modify this collection will now be accessible like this add function. But for now, I'll comment out this one since I already have this apple in my collection. Also, let me refactor this code first to a function that says toggle image. I'll also change the name of this button to btn random. Then, in the setOnClickListener lambda, let's create some sample random number. I'll create a variable r and say, from numbers 0 to 10, I'll call the shuffled function to shuffle these numbers 0 to 10, and then call the first function to return the first item in the list of shuffled numbers. For us to see the random numbers that is generated every time I click this button, I'll use a snack bar and then display this number r. Now let's run and test our app. And when I click this button, it displays random number is 6. Test it again, random number is 4, and so on. Now, instead of using these numbers 0 to 10, I'll use this fruits variable since it contains numbers from the auto-generated IDs of these drawable image resources. Let's run our app again. And when I click this button, the list is shuffled and the first resource ID on the list gets displayed. I'll try it again and different ID number is displayed. To display the actual image instead of just resource ID number, I'll comment out this one and set the image resource of this image view to this r variable. Now let's run our app and see the effect. So, when I click on this Show Random Image button, a random image resource is displayed. I'll test it again, and it works great. Apple, grapes, and orange images are now randomly being displayed. I'll uncomment this code to see if we can add an image to our mutable list of fruits. I'll add our orange vector drawable. So now let's run our app one last time and see if this orange vector appears on the random images. And there you have it. As a code challenge, try to create a similar app that has two image views, one for your guess of either grapes or apple, and the other one is the random image that could match your guess. Initially, none of these buttons will show an image once you click, but a snack bar message saying "Switch to Start Game" is displayed. So when the user switches to Start Game, you can select either grapes or apple as your choice. And once settled, you can click on the random button to generate a random image from a list. And if it doesn't match, then a message saying, "Sorry, you lose" will appear. I'll try it again, but still it didn't match. Then, "Sorry, you lose" gets displayed again. You can switch it off and stop the game and the rest of the buttons won't work again. And now, I'll choose the apple again and click Random, and congratulations, you win is displayed. Again, thanks for watching. If you learned something of value here, please click the like and subscribe button for more programming tutorials. This is Joe Edgo, and hope to see you in the next video lecture.